Welcome back to the B2B Comms Breakdown. I'm Abbas. I am a marketing consultant, creator, speaker, trainer, do lots of stuff all around LinkedIn for built environment firms. Over to you, Stacey.
And I'm Stacey Meadwell. I'm a former journalist turned content creator, trainer, and moderator working with businesses in the built environment.
And
hello.
Today we have a special guest. Who she is? Go on.
Like,
Who are you?
Hi. My name is Aceil. I am a comms professional. I run a company called Map PR. I am also a massive urbanist. I have two degrees in the field, and I am slightly obsessive. I read a lot about it. I think a lot about it. I walk around cities all the time thinking about it. What do people do? What makes them tick? I'm a weirdo.
Fantastic. That's the way to introduce yourself.
Lesson learned.
Say.
I'm a weirdo. That's how to finish it.
Welcome.
Today we are talking about, so thought leader isn't a university-like term, but gets used a lot in relation to comms, profile building and reputation management. But how do you build successful thought leadership, particularly when the world of content is very, very noisy, or the world in general is very, very noisy?
So we are going to be talking for 20 to 30 minutes about what we think thought leadership is. Interested to hear your views, and how to become a thought leader, and also how you pitch comment pieces and speaking opportunities. We're also very keen to hear from you. So if you do have a comment or a thought on something that we are talking about, then pop it in the comments and we'll answer any questions towards the end. But let's crack on. Do let us know if you're watching. It'd be nice to know that people are there. Just say hello in the comments. So let's go to the first question. And I'm going to come to you, Aceil, first. As you are our first guest on the B2B Comms Breakdown, what is thought leadership?
So for me, it's demonstrating an opinion backed up by your expertise and your experiences. And in a world full of noise, people are more and more looking to experts to understand the minefield that is life and the world, and how they can get over issues, and also just sharing challenges and feeling like, I'm not the only one here who's struggling. I think especially at the moment with the economic climate we find ourselves in, I think thought leadership is particularly important as we navigate it through together, and without sounding terribly wanky, we have to do it together, and that is success.
Io.
So I think just building on that a tiny bit, I think there's also that thing about, because I was thinking about this earlier, it's like you can be like a subject matter expert but not a thought leader, can't you? Because you can be something really good at something, but actually if you're not sharing it with the world. So I think there's something about vocalizing it externally and actually taking that viewpoint and taking it external. So I think that's probably the main bit I wanted to add to that. But it's very much about opinion pieces, but also about solutions. Like, you're looking at stuff from a different viewpoint, different angle, but also different ways of doing things and how to solve stuff. And I think that solution piece actually is quite important, because I think there's a lot you can do just in terms of like just throwing out, this is what's wrong with the world. But actually I think the thought leadership and being viewed as an expert has to have that kind of solution-esque, you're solving something as well.
I think also, just to add to that, I think you triggered something, because I was at an event yesterday, Women in Flex by Flexer. Shout out to you guys. But I had a private conversation with Katrina, who is from the Office Group, and she said, if you're willing to put yourself out there and give your opinion and give your idea, then remind yourself that that's not that common. And I think that for me, I think was just like a real light bulb moment. Is like, I'm full of opinions, as you know, but putting yourself out there, that's a big thing, and like never underestimate, if you're willing to do that, just how important that is. And that's the essence of being a thought leader, right?
Definitely, I completely agree. I actually did a poll at the beginning, a LinkedIn poll at the beginning of this week, which obviously is very scientific,
Very.
and asked kind of what people prefer to, which term people prefer to use. Thought leader, expert opinion, comment piece, and a lot of people hate the term thought leader. They really, really don't like it. But I think it's as we discussed in the comments of that poll, it's something that is a bit more generic than just, I don't think it's a label that you can put on yourself. I think it's other people decide that you are a thought leader. But I think your point, Aceil, about sharing opinion, but also sharing other stuff, other experts in your industry, or if you see good things happening, or calling out stuff that is not working. I think there's a whole wealth of information there that you can share that I think can set you up as the person that people will turn to and actually follow and think, actually, I'm interested in what they've got to say about this, because they've expressed an opinion, they've talked about interesting things.
I guess as well, just building on that, what you've just said, Stacey, is there also this bit where it's actually, for leadership, like you say, you're influencing, is about influence as well, right? It does stem into that whole influencer world, if we're being honest. It's about changing opinions and taking people with you and all of that stuff. So it's a kind of straddles a lot of stuff, doesn't it?
I think. Sorry, I think you're right. It's like the OG influencer is the comment piece, and people looking to other people that but by dint of just being published, there you have a platform and a third party endorsement, whether it's right or wrong. Somebody is saying what you're saying is important, and so people will look to that and decide whether they agree or disagree with you.
And one of the things that did come up, which it wasn't mentioned explicitly in the comments on the poll that I did, but it felt like there's, having the confidence to express an opinion. And it was interesting that a lot of comments on there were sort of like, oh, it's arrogant to use that term. I don't sort of see myself as that. And I think it comes back to your point, Aceil, is that there is a confidence thing you don't set out to be a thought leader, but I think you can position yourself as somebody where people are interested in your views, which kind of leads us neatly on to the next question, which is, how do you become a thought leader? And Io, do you want to take this first?
I think it's back to that use your content thing, isn't it? Of actually, what do you want to be known for? What's that bit of the pie that you're going to own or want to be known for? What's your specialist area, and what things are you going to stick to? So, and like I said before, I think it's that visibility piece and being willing to put your head above the parapet and actually say, this is what I believe and why, and being open to doing that. And I think I put down one of the things I also put down was around consistency, but not necessarily just consistency in terms of your branding's got to be on point. I think it's more about the combination of like your message, your tone of voice, what you're saying, what people actually come to you, that draws you. You know what I mean? That kind of consistency. That's what I know that person for. That's what I think more on that consistency side was that. And I think is also this thing of actually, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a thing that you kind of have to just keep going on. So like it builds up over time. It compounds over time again. So I think that for me, that's the kind of how you become a thought leader, is actually having an opinion, what you want to be known for, and consistency in turn, and it builds up over time. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Definitely, and I agree with all that. And I think it's not just about sharing your a straight opinion of something that you think that is important, but I think it's also about, as we've kind of already touched on in answering the first question, sharing other views. What have you seen that is interesting? What have you noticed? So it's not just all me. This is what I think. This is what I think. This is what I think. But actually going, oh, I've seen this. This is it. This is interesting. And actually almost being a curator of what else is interesting that's going on in your area. And again, I think that can help set you up as somebody that people come to, because they know it's not just, you've got interesting things to say, but also you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on. and you're sharing other things that are going on. So that's what I would add. Aceil?
No, I think the same, and that's something I always ask my clients is what's happening that you're not seeing being published. Because I think that especially in the world of the built environment, it's the same voices and the same businesses, and they are so confined to what they can and can't say. So it's like, where are the golden nuggets is what I say to my clients.
Rather than
sounds a bit rude. Yeah. So where are the things that are going to put you forward? And sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, and sometimes it can be as clear as day. But just to go back to the first question, I think I firmly believe that anyone can be a thought leader, and it doesn't matter how long you have worked, who you are, where you are in the spectrum of your career as well. I think that everyone has something important to say, and never underestimate that. And your experience just going into the labour market could be really valuable, because you don't have the cloudiness of time. So I think that's really important to consider when you think about who can be thought leaders. It doesn't need to be the person at the top. It can be, the person who's just started, or the returner to the market, or somebody who's had a career change, because their perception and their understanding of the market is just so valuable.
Yeah, it's about sharing those experiences, and I think there's a great value in that. That can be opinion. How, if you are starting out, what's it been like? And there's a lot people can learn from that. And I think that's a point around thought leaders. What can people learn from what you are saying? And it doesn't, as you say, it doesn't matter. You can be just starting out. You can be the top of the ladder. You can be the middle of the ladder. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Go on.
No. I was just going to say it's an open forum, and something I always encourage my friends to do is speak to their comms team and see where they can express their opinion rather than tell me.
Yeah.
What
is that what you do? You sit there and just go, look, we're just meant to be catching up, not working. It's just not right.
But the thing is it's also so valuable to personal development, right? Because in a world where especially women and people of color, they're fairly unseen, and it's like putting yourself out there so you are seen and you have got a voice. And that's what the media landscape, I think, has really, really missed, and still misses, actually, is the variation, diversity of voice.
But then that's that confidence thing again, though, isn't it, as well? As adds, people feeling, do I belong here? Do I see myself here? And it's that thing, it's like that's a gap you can fill, isn't it?
And that's why you should come to me.
Right. And so what is the best way to pitch comment pieces or for speaking opportunities?
I think it's go on. So sorry, I think it's two-way, really. So with lots of my clients, we I think also this is the power of time and knowledge and experience, and knowing exactly what journalist is going to bite what, because so sometimes a lot of the time we write the comment pieces and go to the specific outlet and say, I like, this is what we've written about, and I know that you'll like it because X, Y, and Z, or the zeitgeist is this, and this is why we have responded with this, just to smooth the passage of time and get it in as quick as possible. And then the other way that you do it is, I have a piece coming out in the Metro soon, where you go to somebody and you say, this is an experience I've had. Are you interested in sharing it? This is why it's a problem, and this is why it should be shared. And so doing it more that way, so like the proactive and the reactive way. In terms of speaking opportunities, look, I think the first thing is developing that reputation through blogs, through things like this, through comment pieces, so people know exactly what your modus operandi is, and who you are and what you're saying and how you add to the panel. And then if you want to proactively go to it, search out the people who are organising, the event organisers, have a coffee and a sit down, and what is it that you can say and add to the debate and the discussion. And again, I think look, I think there's a problem here because so many things are so incentivized through sponsorship.
Aren't they? It's a lot harder.
Yeah. So you have the same voices. Now you've got to try and climb up, climb up and get yourself heard. And so I think that's really through relationships.
I think that point on, sorry, Stace, I was just going to say that point on that sponsorships thing. But then I guess in some ways, if you make your own avenues to speak, like through lives and things like that, that's stuff you can own just as a stepping stone, can't you? But yeah. Sponsorship's so hard.
I mean, I just want to just add one thing. I think, if there's something that we can all do in terms of championing diversity, that's one of the things that we can say is, let's not, it doesn't need to be a quid pro quo, because I sponsor you, I get a slot. Actually, I want to, I want the shout out. I maybe want the content to recreate on my, and use for my own platform. But actually, I want to hear somebody different. One of my favorite sayings is you might have 20 people around the table, but you only need one other opinion to have two opinions. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. I just wanted to come back to your point about going to a specific publication. I mean, I have sat on the other side of the fence because I've been an editor who had to edit comment pieces. So I've had people pitching to me their comment ideas. And I think having a publication in mind is quite a good strategy, because then you can write for that particular audience. Because the editor, when I was an editor, I was looking for what was going to be of interest to my audience. So if you're just putting out a generic piece and trying to kind of pitch it around lots of different publications, it might not be a good fit for most of those publications. Whereas if you have in mind, okay, I want to get this in, let's angle it so that it's relevant to that particular audience, I think it will be easy. I mean, I don't know. I've never done the pitching, but having been on the receiving end, that's what I would suggest. Think about who the editor, who the journalist, who the publication is for, and what that audience is interested in. A couple of other things, again, from my experience being pitched to for comment pieces, is have an opinion. I used to get lots of people pitching essentially press releases and go, can we talk about this? It's just like, no, you've got to have a viewpoint. It was called an opinion piece, a comment piece, because you've got to have something to say. Think about what the angle is that, of the story. Because I ghostwrite a lot of opinion pieces that, full disclosure, that Aceil then pitches into publications.
Like a sales pitch, I'm going.
Sorry, it's just more to demonstrate. I write them for other people, so I write them so they can be pitched in, and think about there's an element of journalism here in that how you pitch your idea. There has to be attention. This is important because of X, Y, and Z. You have to be creating. It sounds terrible. It's the wrong word to use, but you have to be creating a bit of drama around an issue to make it lively, to make it punchy, to make it interesting, and to make it stand out from all the other opinion pieces that are being pitched in. The other final thing I would say, and then I'll shut up, is avoid obvious marketing. If you're pitching to a publication, their job is not to do your marketing for you. They're interested in something that is going to be useful to their readers. And you saying, trying to drop in little references to your products, to your services, is not going to cut it. I mean, at best, it will get edited out. It's not going to go in if you've got marketing stuff in there. At worst, they'll take one look at it and go, delete. I'm not interested. So I'll shut up now.
I know I had exactly that written down. I must say that there is a stark difference between advertorial and editorial.
Oh God, yes.
And people really must understand. But that doesn't mean you can't demonstrate who you are. And that's why I said at the beginning, is what makes you a thought leader in the field, what background or professional experience, and it's that subtlety of discussion, like my clients who are talking about flexible workspace, for example. They're not going to talk about flexible work, their flexible workspaces, but they will drop it, they will drop in the value of them or what's going on in the market, de facto demonstrating that they are offering flexible workspace. So I think it's just a complete reminder, and I think also the other thing is I have to admit, I have tried to sneakily get in there, and a journalist has been like, well, do you know, I've lost that trust from you and we have to start again. We're not at that point anymore, but there has been one or two where it's like I'm just not going to trust you if you have given me something that is marketing.
I was just going to add, read the publications beforehand that you want to pitch to, which sounds really obvious, but it's true. A lot of people don't, right? But read it in that analytical way as well. So what opinion pieces have they run before, any patterns or trends, and actually assess them and understand what they're covering and what style that they seem to like and use, because I think that really helps you in terms of how to pitch stuff, because your headline or for your pitch email, for example, could be in the style of the headline that they use in that publication, and just how you craft that pitch email so that it really does sing and it has that drama and the dialogue that Stacey said as well. And I think just thinking about how you craft that to that specific publication is really important. And in terms of kind of, I guess, best way to pitch comment pieces, I was very much like things like what's happening in the news, and then thinking about how you can pitch that or how that's applicable to the built environment. So those big trends that you're seeing going on, legislation it's quite dry, but actually it's one of the best ways to pitch stuff, isn't it? Because everyone has to deal with it. Everyone's trying to figure it out. So, that whole thing of actually this is coming in, this is what you need to know, that kind of stuff, I think is actually quite an easy way to get coverage, or relatively easy.
I want to ask you a question in a moment, Io, about podcasts, but I just want to add to that in terms of the responding to news. It has to be timely, because if you're pitching an opinion piece on a news story that broke 3 weeks ago, it's gold. The time has passed, and I think that there is a temptation. Yes, do it, but you've got to do it quickly. So that means having like an approval structure in there that is fast, and is because it's not going to work. Then they're not going to run.
You have to be you have to do it.
Yeah. But my question for you, Ios, because you are a podcast host, a fantastic podcast, and you have guests on that, and I know. And also, I know that you have been a guest on many podcasts. What would be your advice about pitching? Because podcast is an area that often gets overlooked, and there are so many brilliant podcasts out there, and it can be it's a different format to like being on a panel or something. Yeah. So how would you? What would be your advice?
Things that we've said today about pitching thought leadership are as applicable to being on a podcast or speaking opportunities, because I still think it's that, finding the right, what are they talking about, who are their guests, listening to the episode, understanding what their formats and question structure is, looking at the gaps of who they've interviewed and where the gaps are, and subjects that they haven't covered but would be of interest to their listeners. So I think it's all the same skills, and I think that's the thing. I think this whole pitching thing is, once you've got it, you can apply it to different, be it the press, be it podcasts, be it speaker opportunities, because it's the same skill set underneath. So I think that's exactly the same. Podcast, it's the same thing. Just make sure you listen to it, and do they have guests on? Do they not? Or how long is it? What sort of topics do they cover? And then come up with your own version. And I think that's it. But it's just make it personal again. So showing that you've listened. I really enjoyed when you talked about this topic with such and such. I really think this, and I would like to talk about. And I think it's just doing that on the podcast side. Mm-hmm. That's what I do. Because
it's really obvious when people pitch in and they don't know anything about the publication or the podcast or whatever, that and I think it's just a bit kind of it sort of implies that you've just sort of sent out a scattergun, sort of like, I'm going to try and pitch into all of these, and you haven't been specific. And I think it's a bit rude to do that, but also it's just not effective. And people, if you're an editor or you're a podcast host or you're an event host, you want to know that the person has taken time to consider what you are looking for and what's going to be of value to your readers, listeners, conference, audience or whatever it is.
I think, and just to add to that, I think ultimately you want somebody engaged, right? Because there's nothing worse than somebody who isn't committed, to a podcast, to a magazine, to, following through, and, once that's published, sharing it and supporting them, because, we're in a world that's dominated by matrix, by metrics.
What kind of matrix are you talking about, babe?
And that's why I sit behind. We're in a world that's dominated by metrics, so people are really keen for you to share it amongst your people as well. So because it makes them look good, right? The art of flattery is so important.
Absolutely.
But I think as well on podcasts, when people don't listen to a podcast and they go on the show and then they sound surprised when they're asked a certain question, I'm like, this just sounds awful. It really does. I've seen some celeb ones and you're like, it's quite clear you've never listened to this podcast. And you're there going, huh? And it's just you've got to do the work.
I listened to a podcast I don't actually like, but I loved the guest. And she was like, why are you asking me this? And it was like, well, I mean, look, I'll just say what it is. It's, Elizabeth Day's failure podcast. She was like, why are you asking me about my failure? And I'm like,
the podcast is called How to Fail.
Exactly. I'd like, she's one of the best interviewers in the business. What are you doing? So your agent's just gone, yeah, you need to go on this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like going on Desert Island Discs and going, what you mean I have to choose eight discs?
Really,
what? Why am I on a desert island?
There's nothing you know. It's when you see that and you're like, I think there was one with like, I think it was like one of the Miller bands, I can't remember which one, was like on Jesse Ware's podcast, and it was all about food, but he quite obviously didn't know why he was there, and he just kept it was just so strange. He's like, look at every question, you could just hear he was going, huh? It's just,
I like a bacon sandwich.
Yes, I'm on a food thing.
Shut up.
I'm here. So, yeah,
don't talk about that bacon sandwich.
Anyway, if you have any more questions for us on thought leadership or how Ed Miliband eats his sandwiches, please leave them in the comments. If not, we are going to end up signing off, aren't we, Stacey?
Yeah, well, we do. I just want to say a shout out to Katie Bygrave, who said hello in the comments and thanked us. So thank you very much for watching, Kate. That's brilliant. We are going to be back on the 17th of November. I've written that down. Yes, 17th of November. Get that right. Thank you, Aceil, for being our first guest.
Yay.
Thank you.
It's all gone live and it's Friday and it's good.
It's been fun.
Thank you also so much for listening and watching us, whoever you are, or if you're watching on catch up, leave a hashtag saying reply in the comments and we'll say hello. And that's it. We're going to sign off. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
I was going to say you should